Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review the Netflix movie, The Wasteland. So, I think this movie, for me, is probably going to be reviewing this in a very odd, roundabout way, where I'm probably just going to tell things that happened in the movie rather than just telling the movie in perfect order. Simply because, really, I would normally at first go on and tell you it's like, well, this movie had a really great story, or this movie had a really great visual. And for this movie has neither. Most of this film is to be in the darkness, or most of this film is to really just be to where we have the kid being covered by a sheet or something, to where we can't visually see much of anything. And so, okay, like visuals are just flushed down the toilet. Uh, Story, really, there is like this slim pickings of like, hey, there's ghost stories to kind of get you riveted about this film, that there's some kind of beast monster thing that is to be played into this story somehow, because half the time you don't actually see what both the mother and father are firing away at or what they are fearing, because you only really get to see this monster in certain flashes of certain parts of this movie, but you can't really make it out at all what it really is. And when you actually do supposedly see this monster towards the end of the film, you can't still really understand exactly what this monster is, because why would you? This movie is probably the cheapest Netflix movie that I have probably ever seen, and I have seen some stuff. I have seen some things. Wouldn't recommend it, because this movie really comes down to just being a waste, and it lands nowhere near anywhere would I would recommend anybody to watch this film. Uh, so yeah, so going on to this film, just an awful film overall. A film that honestly just wasted my time. But hey, it weirdly is popular for some odd reason right now, so I decided to go out of my way to watch it. Simply because I was like, maybe there's something that I could get here that eventually may not be the whole part of the film. Maybe there's like some like second half of it, or maybe there's something towards the end that I'm like, oh, okay, I got this at least, but it just never happened. So I just went into a hour and 30-minute movie, just like, well, this was an easy thing for me to just get through and review and do. So, in a small portion of things, the very unsavory parts about this film, which they cover, uh, right out of the gate, like, I'm gonna let you know that people are going to the bathroom in this film. Isn't that exciting? We're consistently seeing people go to the bathroom in this film. That's exciting. Whether it's an outhouse, whether it's a pot, they had to do that in this film for some odd reason. I don't really care that it's the 19th century. It's still people going to the bathroom in a pot. It makes no sense. So, not only that, but then we actually have to hear or consistently have them go into the murdering of rabbits in this film. Um, we don't actually visually see it, but we can consistently hear the sounds of the carnage of a murder going on with a rabbit. So that's, man, that part of that movie just got me just like, why, like, it seems like the stuff that you would normally take out of film they're putting in because they just have time to kill here. Because if it's not the raving crazy people that are to go, that of course to like have, of course, Diego's parents losing their mind, both Lucia and Salvador here, we really go, and like in the very beginning of this movie there seems to be some kind of potential, but then that quickly just dissolves with the fact where this movie goes nowhere, because we have a kid who is to of course be like afraid of leaving his bed at night to want to go to the bathroom, And like I thought that was like that was the most interesting thing here. We technically have this kid with like these wood carved action figure like things, but again, after that beginning of this movie kind of quickly goes and like goes and leaves us. So does this film. At one point, like the only like really saving grace of this movie is to probably just be like, oh, a birthday, oh, an event that they can they can do something with, because anything else is just to be ghost stories and uh, eventually like just scaring this kid more if he isn't already. We have mostly in this film where Salvador, Diego's father, is trying to make a man out of this kid, and we turn around and have a mother that is trying to do the opposite, who's just kind of letting him go on to live his life as the age of which that he is. And we weirdly have, and this is going to be the last of the cryptic part, we have this weird, goofy, scarecrow like barrier that is to supposedly tell us if these people are to cross this barrier, they're going to go onto these lands that are to be of war? Like as if they're going to start walking past this barrier and getting sucked into this portal, which that's not what really happens. That's what I assumed. That's what I thought. I thought it was going to be like the Field of Dreams thing, where you all of a sudden have like the person consistently walking through the cornfield and all of a sudden they fade away. That's what I thought was going to happen here. But it doesn't. Nothing of here is just like, man, is there ever going to be a budget to this film? No. And so I don't really get what was the barrier thing. That made no rational sense to me. Uh, like, was everything that his parents was telling him a lie, or was really just Diego inheriting their crazy? I don't know. But with that said, I think I'm going to go into that double five, because it's otherwise that time yet again, to go into this thing called Spoiler Time. Spoiler Time, it's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So, I'm probably not going to review this in a perfect way. I'm just going to go out of my way to talk about this film in the best way that I can, because this movie just has really nothing for real legitimate enjoyment, in all honesty. So, we of course in the very beginning of this film have Diego, who is to be sleeping in his bed, desperately I guess wanting to go and pee. So he goes and starts to pull out his pot and that's underneath his bed. And all of a sudden he is to accidentally break his pot because I guess he ends up getting scared at night. So now Diego goes to his parents that are sleeping in their bed and tells them like, hey, like I need to go to the bathroom. And so they're like, okay, we'll go to the outhouse. So both Salvador and Diego, weirdly with Salvador having the shotgun, which I guess like, what are they expecting, robbers to be going to their porta-john? I don't know. So their outhouse. It doesn't like whatever with this movie. It's so I guess maybe there might be animals at night. I don't know. They like it is what it is with this film. So Diego goes out to this outhouse and is trying to like force himself to go to pee because it's like, hey, they told me to rush here. So we of course El Salvador telling Diego to like, come on, guy, wrap it up. Like I know you just got out here and you're a little pee shy, but come on. So Diego goes and of course pees and whatever. So we go on and we eventually have this character that is to go on and have to learn some things from Salvador, trying to make a man out of him, go on and try to kill one of these bunnies, but Lucia is just like, well, hey, how about you come to me and kind of peel potatoes and do that instead. So we have both Lucia and Diego going and peeling potatoes, making some food and whatever. So we eventually go on and have Diego having a birthday, and so they end up making a pie for him, and so his father ends up giving him a shotgun for his birthday, and the shotgun is to, of course, be having his name engraved in it because I guess they're carvers, they're wood carvers, and we never really have this kid actually use this gun throughout a bulk of this movie, with the exclusion maybe really towards the end there. But it has his name carved in it for whatever reason. So we of course have Diego not even knowing how to actually use this gun, and so his father ends up explaining it. So we go on and we of course have his mother giving him a gift of these tin cans that can go on and uh, have them play this game of I Spy, and so it's tin cans with a string, and so we have them kind of playing it out here. So we go on and we have Salvador telling, of course, his son this story about his sister who I guess had gotten beaten up by her parents. And so eventually we have this sister going to Salvador, mentioning that she had seen some monster. And I guess there was one day where this girl was to basically say that she saw this monster outside this window. And so I guess this girl had gotten so scared that she decided to just jump out this window and to dive her way down, um, to end her life because she was so terrified that she continued to see this monster. So Diego should have told his dad, it's like, well, hey, great story about your sister murdering herself. Man, that's great. So, because Diego is going to have nightmares about that now. So we go on and have at some point where Salvador is to be outside. All of a sudden, this guy in this boat is to be floating along, making their way, or making his way to these people. I don't know why there's all of a sudden a water or a pond or a thing here, but there is. So Salvador comes on and is to like start to treat this guy's injury, and hoping that he can kind of like, well, like it's the right thing to do. So all of a sudden, this guy, I don't know what his actual name is because I couldn't have been bothered, because he doesn't last very long in this film. We have this guy eventually, after his wounds are treated, he goes into this house and decides to take the shotgun of which that these people have and put it to his face and fire, showcasing that now this guy is dead. So Salvador is to go on and take this guy's body and go past the barrier to figure out where this guy's family is so he can retrieve this body back to whatever this family is. So they go on and they let Salvador go and do this, even though rationally they're like, okay, that's kind of, you could just bury the body. So Salvador just rides on, and he's not getting sucked into a portal. He's not really, like, he's just going past these lands. And so the barrier doesn't all of a sudden, like, get him into war. But I guess maybe he just... Because his horse ends up weirdly coming back later on in this film. And we end up finding out that this, like, all of his guns are still on the horse. And all of the bullets are, like, emptied out. So probably Salvador had saw this demon and had fired, and this monster, this creature, this beast, and emptied all his shells into him, but eventually just led to Salvador not coming back to this family for whatever goofy reason. So we now just have both Diego and Lucia just continuing to try and just make the best of their circumstances, but we eventually all of a sudden start to have, of course, Diego's mother who's losing her freaking mind, and she continues to go on to shoot at something that's not there, consistently going on and just using every single shotgun bullet that they have on some imaginary thing that none of us can really see until possibly the very end of this film. So, I don't want to sound very condescending for this review, but like, man, like this film just like, how much money did you want to just save doing this film? How much money you want to save, Netflix? Like, how much? I want to know exactly to the dollar, cent, whatever. I want to know how much money that this movie took to make. Because, man, if you spent, like, more than $10,000 on this film, I'd be like, man, Netflix, you can throw away some money. How about you throw me some money, Netflix? Because obviously, like, you're just throwing money around just willy-nilly everywhere, and just wasting it on, like, more than likely this might have been a pre-made movie that they just said, oh, okay, we'll take this one. Because I think people are just pitching the movies, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll just slap our Netflix label on this one. So it's probably a pre-made movie that they're just saying, okay, we'll make this our content. Like, I don't think it's something that... I really just don't think that this is something that was already done ahead of time by Netflix, because, man, if it is... They planned this movie? They put a plan out to do such and such films? Wow. Man, does Netflix just want to just have people just go on to other apps? Hence why, like, people are very iffy about Netflix content compared to anything else. It seems like a lot of other places, they don't waste original content all that often, unless it's like freaking Disney, and then it's like, F it, man, we have tons of money that we can just toss around. We're freaking Disney. We need some on our Disney Plus content. So, we go on here, and so more and more we just have Lucia who gets freaking bat crap crazy, to the point of her just consistently pelting out shells of this shotgun, to where eventually they're starting to run out of bullets in the shotgun. And so we have Lucia telling her son to go on and like stab a body a certain way, to make sure if this demon is to arrive, to go and stab at a certain order of things to make sure it's dead. And at this point, I'm just like, man, like, this kid is like doing some heavy growing up here. If he wasn't having to take care of his mother, that is to really just start to lose her mind towards the end of this movie. She's trying to like make her way out of this world, where she's going and either hanging herself, or she's going on and, like, Damien, this is for Ewing, like, hanging herself. It was freaking awful. She goes on and is, I think at one point, to slit her own wrist because she's just bat crap crazy. And I guess that's probably the path that every one of these characters are to eventually take at some point, when they see this monstrous beast of a thing. So Diego is to go on, and supposedly this monster is to feed off everyone's weaknesses, is to feed off their fears and whatever. And so I think when we end up having Diego, who is to face this monster face to face, as this thing is trying to somehow make it into their house, and at one point is to toss the little cup to Diego, and Diego is to listen to it, and he's like, "I spy," and he's like, "Whoa!" Like, I'm chucking that thing away, and so we end up having Diego at some point. Lucia is to mention about some dress that Salvador had given to her. And I'm like, well, when is this dress going to come back into play? Because there's a reason why they presented this dress. And surefire enough, towards the end of this film, when Lucia is to have already hung herself, she decides to cut off all of her hair by using, I'm assuming, a knife, because what else makes sense here? So Lucia, all of a sudden, her hair is much shorter. She's wearing this red dress, and she is kind of rocking back and forth this cradle that is supposedly have a baby in it, um, but instead it just has this wooden monstrous figure, and because we just have Lucia who's just carving these figures up, and I'm like, okay, this is so weird. So all of a sudden we have Lucia telling, of course, Diego that this monster wants her, and so because Diego is desperately trying to tell his mother to let's just leave this home, let's get out of here, and so Lucia is to lock this door on Diego and tell him that the monster wants her. So all of a sudden, Diego is now taking this axe and chopping through this door to try to unlock it to get back in the house. So now we have this mother whose throat is cut, and so now Diego is to go on to face this monster. And what he ends up doing is he ends up just setting fire to the house and dragging his mother out of it, putting her in some wheelbarrow somewhere, and deciding to go on past the barrier where he eventually is to go and hit water. And realizing that his mother is dead, he ends up just putting her in the water and just telling her goodbye, as she is supposedly dead here. We end up also having at one point where both Diego and Lucia were both in this tub together, and they have these weird, bizarre matches where they are to see who can hold their breath the longest. And so Diego is to hold his breath, and then his mother is to hold his breath. Well, the second time around that they do this, it seems that his mother is trying to hold her breath for as long as possible, and so Diego is kind of fearful of his mother again trying to take her own life, and so he pushes her up to try and get her to get a breath of air. So, but we have at points where, of course, before they find out Salvador's horse, we just consistently having them scream and yell out for, like, man, I can't wait for Papa to come back, like man, I can't wait for him to come back, so on and so forth. Like, it's been days. We consistently have Diego that's asking, it's like, well, maybe it'll be another day, maybe it'll be another day, as he's consistently going on and talking to these rabbits as if he's losing his mind because he has no other friends here. Like, I'm just thinking, I'm like, well, what's gonna happen with it when his mother and father is gonna die? Like, he's probably gonna want to go past the barrier anyways, because he's probably not gonna, like, he's gonna have nobody. Like, he's gonna go on, and like, he's not gonna have anyone, and he'll, I guess, eventually just die once he loses his freaking mind. But that's all that really happens in the film. Like, there's not much more than that, and I kind of went out of my way to go and backpedal through parts of this film, which honestly I could not justify going back and backpedaling, but it's something to say, for which this video is to probably be very short, because man, this movie is to just be this weird, bizarre-ish thing of a movie that doesn't really exactly go anywhere. but it is what it is. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any last bit of something that I can go and talk about this film. Um, there's any little last ditch things that I forgot about here. And we also had one point where, of course, Diego was to try and celebrate his mother's birthday, and he ends up making a pie for her that he ends up like horrifically burning, just because like he's never really made a pie before, and so he's trying his best. So we have at that point where like Diego's mother is just freaking gone, and so at one point there's where Diego is having to kill his pet rabbit so that way they can eat, and he's forcing food on his mother so that way she can eat, and because Diego is making is eating some rabbit that I don't think is cooked all that well, but because I think he didn't exactly do certain things because he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just having to make some kind of food is really what he's doing at this point. So yeah, to where his mother just gets crazier and crazier, to where he even has to tie her to the bed at one point, so that way she won't hurt herself. And eventually, this is just how this movie plays out when. And Diego eventually has to cut the ties because he is to also start to see this beast in this house. So, yeah, and that leads to eventually his mother cutting off her hair, getting on that dress, losing her freaking mind, and yeah. So with that said, that's all I got for this one. I went in a very roundabout way, just kind of covering all bits and pieces of this. And I know people might have got confused, but again, this movie is a movie that I saw at one point, and it's all over the place. So I'm sorry about how that is technically all over the place, but just going back and backpedaling on a movie like this, it is what it is. So with that said, I think that's all that I have to say about this one. As a viciously short film, or viciously short review for a movie that was a quick thing to see because there's nothing going on. Um, we end up having the kid at the end of this movie who uses the last shotgun bullet because his mother is wasting so much of it, and Diego is to stop her from using the last shotgun bullet. And so once Diego is to see this monster in his house, he uses the one shotgun bullet and then lights the house on fire and then has them run out of this place. I think the kid being like not like unfearful was probably the only reason why that this monster was to be killed here, but uh justifying it actually getting killed like is what it is. So another one-off movie for Netflix. I'm sure they're not going to make a sequel out of this bad boy. So with that said, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.